There's a fantasy attached to the laundromat, and it's one of the most durable get-rich ideas in America. You buy the machines, set out the change, and at the end of the week you drive over, unlock a box, and scoop out a pile of quarters. No employees, no inventory, no customer you ever have to speak to. A business that runs while you sleep. And the pitch comes with a genuinely impressive fact. The laundromat is one of the most recession-proof businesses in the country. It survives on corners where the restaurant, the gym, and the clothing store all quietly went under, because people stop eating out long before they stop washing their clothes. So far, so perfect, and yet something strange is true at the same time. A lot of people who actually buy one end up earning less per hour than the teenager working the register next door. Both of those things are real, the recession-proof goldmine and the owner quietly making minimum wage. To see how they fit together, you have to stop looking at the machines, because the machines are the least important thing you're buying. The first myth to clear away is that a laundromat is one thing. It's really three, and they barely resemble each other. At the bottom is the small unattended store, 15 or 20 machines in a strip mall unit. No staff, a camera in the corner, a phone number taped to the wall for when something breaks. $50,000 to $200,000 to get in. It's the closest thing to the passive income fantasy that actually exists, and the easiest one to wildly overpay for. In the middle is the attended store, 30 to 60 machines, someone on site, a wash and fold counter, a real small business at $200,000 to $500,000. At the top is the large store or small chain, 60 machines and up, pickup and delivery vans, contracts with gyms and short-term rental hosts, starting north of $1 million. At that size, you're not running a laundromat anymore. You're running a small logistics company that happens to own washing machines. The whole US industry is about $6.8 billion a year across roughly 35,000 stores. And the telling detail is that around 80% of them are still single-location, mom-and-pop operations. Hold on to that number. It's the reason the back half of this video exists. So where does the cash actually come from? On the surface, it's the simplest business on earth. A wash cycle vends for between $3 and $6. A dryer runs by the minute. Vend price times machines, times how many times each machine runs in a day. That's your revenue. And that middle figure is the single most important number in the whole business. The industry calls it turns per day. A healthy store turns each machine 4 to 6 times a day. A struggling one, once or twice. Same machines, same building, same vend price. The only thing that changed is how many people walked through the door. The typical store sits at around 3 turns a day, and the gap between 3 and 5 is, quite literally, the gap between a good investment and a slow disaster. So what controls turns per day? Here's the uncomfortable answer: almost nothing about the laundromat itself. You can buy newer machines, add card payment, repaint the place. And it barely moves. Because turns per day isn't a measurement of your store. It's a measurement of the neighborhood it sits in. Which means the thing you're really buying isn't on the showroom floor at all. Here's the reframe that changes how you see the whole thing. A laundromat is not a soap business. It's a real estate business that happens to sell hot water. What you're really buying is a location with a permanent built-in customer base. The apartment buildings around it. Every renter within a few blocks who doesn't have a washer and dryer inside their unit is a customer who has no real choice but to come to you every week for years. You're not selling clean clothes. You're monetizing the fact that decades ago, a landlord decided not to put hookups in the building. That's why turns per day is really a census of the neighborhood. How many renters, how dense, how stuck. And it's why the most valuable thing in the transaction isn't the machines, it's the lease. 30 washers bolted into specialized plumbing don't relocate, so the right to occupy that specific corner for a long time at a known rent, that is the asset. The equipment just turns the location into cash. Investors have a name for this: a long-dated, recession-resistant yield secured against real estate. They just don't usually expect to find it behind a coin slot. So if the location's so good and demand never quits, why does anyone lose money? Because the costs you can see aren't the ones that get you. Outfitting a store with new machines can run $100,000 or more, but that's a one-time bill you see coming. The costs that quietly eat laundromat owners alive show up every month. The biggest is utilities. Strip away the romance, and a laundromat is just a building that heats enormous quantities of water and blows hot air through it. Water, sewer, gas, electricity, together they routinely eat 20 to 30 cents out of every dollar the store takes in. And here's the trap inside that number. When the city raises its water rates, and cities always raise their water rates, your single largest cost climbs, while your VEN price just sits there because you can't quietly bump the price of a wash every quarter the way a landlord bumps rent. Then there's the slow bleed. Machines wear out on a 10 to 15-year clock, so down the line a very large re-equipment bill is coming for you. Constant maintenance, broken belts, jammed slots, an out-of-order sign taped to the third washer from the left. The attendant's wage, if the store is staffed. None of these is dramatic alone. Together, they're why a store bringing in $300,000 a year might hand its owner only $60, a net margin of roughly 20 to 35%. Healthy, but a long way from free money falling out of a coin box. Now the part the brochure leaves out. The two ways this business quietly kills its owner. Mistake one is buying without controlling the lease. This is a real estate play. But in almost every case, you don't own the real estate, you rent it. Buy a laundromat with 3 years left on its lease, and you haven't bought a business. You've bought a countdown timer. When that lease runs out, the landlord holds every card because you cannot move. He can double the rent or refuse to renew and lease the space, now already plumbed and wired for laundry, to someone else at a premium. That's why a laundromat on a short lease is worth almost nothing, no matter how many quarters it collects today, and why the well-run ones sit on 10 to 15-year leases. Mistake 2 is the right store in the wrong place. The whole model depends on renters without hookups. Buy in a gentrifying neighborhood, where the old apartment blocks are being refitted with washer dryers in every unit or knocked down for condos, and you're watching your customer base get demolished, one building permit at a time. The store looks healthy the day you sign, then bleeds out over 5 years while you wonder what you did wrong. Which is why the smart buyers do something counterintuitive. They hunt for tired, badly run stores in dense renter neighborhoods on long leases and fix what the last owner ignored. Because here's how these things trade. A laundromat sells for roughly 3.5 to 5 times its net income. So every broken machine you repair, every dead hour you fill, doesn't just earn a few more dollars. It gets multiplied by 5 when you sell. The location was almost never the problem, the owner was. Put all of that together and you'd think this was a settled, sleepy corner of the economy. For about a century it was. Roughly 80% of America's laundromats are still single owners with one store. The most fragmented Main Street business left standing. And that's exactly what makes it interesting right now. Because the same pattern that already ran through self-storage, gas stations, and the car washes we took apart last time. Fragmented mom-and-pop businesses, quietly bought up and bolted together by serious money once someone works out how to standardize them, is now arriving at the laundromat. One advisory firm that brokers these deals says institutional inquiries jumped roughly 5-fold in just 18 months. Family offices, former executives, private equity groups that already own portfolios of boring service businesses, all circling the quarter machines. And they've spotted the lever the mom-and-pops ignore. Self-service laundry sells for about 25 cents a pound. Full service, wash, dry, fold, pick up, deliver, sells for around $2 a pound. Convert a self-service customer into a full-service one, and you don't just make more per visit. You multiply their lifetime value roughly 8-fold. A pickup and delivery order averages about $80 against $44 for a drop-off. That's how you take a flat, 1% a year industry and make it grow. And it's catnip to a roll-up. This is the part of these breakdowns I find genuinely fun. Watching the moment a boring business stops being boring and becomes an asset class. If that's your kind of thing too, this channel takes apart a different ordinary business every week. So stick around. Because the laundromat is at the very start of a curve, the car wash has already finished riding. So, is a laundromat a money machine? The honest answer is the one we keep arriving at, only the right one and never the way it's sold. Buy the small, unattended store and you've bought a yield, 30, maybe 40,000 a year for a few hours a week, emptying lint traps, a 4 or 5 year payback that's good but not the windfall in the thumbnail. Buy the big attended store and you've bought a job that happens to pay well. Vans, payroll, schedules, and $150,000 you very much work for. The fantasy of money falling out of a coin box while you sleep was never quite real. But step back, and the bigger lesson isn't about laundry at all. It's the same machine we found under the car wash, running again. Take a boring, recession-proof service, sit it on real estate, wrap recurring demand around it, and you've built something that looks like pocket change and behaves like an institutional-grade asset. The difference this time is timing. The car wash already peaked, got rolled up, and went private. The laundromat is only now being discovered, the last big fragmented corner of Main Street with the serious money just walking through the door. Once you can see the lease, the turns per day, and the renters who have nowhere else to go, you stop seeing a room full of washers. You start seeing the asset. And we're going to keep pulling them apart, one boring corner at a time. The next one's already spinning.